When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
Routine, adjective. Used to describe an individual whose spirit is unyielding, unconstrained, one who navigates life on their own terms, effortlessly. They do not always show up on time, but when they arrive, you notice an individual confident in their contradictions. They know the rules, but behave as if they do not exist. Routine, the new fragrance by Miu Miu, defined by you.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hi, welcome. We got a lot to cover tonight, but here's some of the things you'll learn on tonight's program. Somebody interviewed a bunch of folks who were later in their life, and they were asked what they regretted most. Themes of not spending enough time with their families, letting fear hold them back in life, and not taking better care of their health were some of the common answers. So from that, we'll discuss all things regrets. That'll be in 10 minutes time, and maybe if you listen, we can save you some regret in your life. Then some research on loneliness, how it can happen when you're in a group of people who support you. And it can happen if you're prone to paranoia and social anxiety. We'll go over that research towards the end of the hour. That's just some of what you'll hear on tonight's show. There's going to be a lot more. Let's jump in. We are here with foreign correspondent Tony Five in London, England, to do a news opinion piece, something a little unusual for us. We're going to discuss late-night host Jimmy Kimmel's return to television, which him and I both watched last night. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hello, my friend. Yes, foreign correspondent Tony Five here, reporting about something that happened in the States, but weirdly has an implication here in the UK. A very strange situation. Again, don't need to sort of touch the politics of it, but obviously Kimmel said something last week, Donald Trump got involved, and he was pulled off the air, okay?
Yeah.
And it was surreal because of the way people were talking about it. People like mass, exodus of Disney Plus, like basically stabbing Mickey Mouse. There was all sorts of things going on in the world, my friend. And I guess the whole thing about the free speech, and I didn't realize, is it Stephen Colbert he'd been taken off? Is that right?
Yeah, his show is going to end soon. Yeah.
And that was another thing, right? It's kind of closely related to maybe his politics or what he said, and him being taken off the air. It wasn't because he was unpopular or anything, right?
With Colbert or with Jimmy Kimmel?
With Colbert.
I don't actually know the specifics too much. I know it's next year, like in May, like he's been giving a lot of notice. But yeah, the show is ending, and arguably it's because of that stuff.
Because of that stuff. And that's kind of what he alluded to in his kind of comeback speech. I personally thought it was done very well. I read a lot of the comments beneath it saying that he was insincere.
Wait, you went on YouTube and read YouTube comments?
Of course, that's where you get all the best information, and Reddit, my friend. So, and I only did it to see the general feeling, because most of the people, the comments are from Americans, because the UK wouldn't have watched it. And it was kind of interesting just to read both sides of the argument, him saying, yep, we're defending free speech. The thing that I found, like a couple of things that I found the most interesting, people that genuinely are against his politics, that genuinely hated him, still supported his right to say what he did. I found that amazing.
Well, I think free speech is something that's like deeply, especially compared to the UK, where if you say you don't like the king, they hit you with a long stick or whatever. Correct. I just mean a lot of Western countries are into free speech to varying degrees.
Yeah.
But the US, it's like really enshrined in the culture. Like it's in their constitution.
The constitution, exactly. And they always bring that up. And I know you're Canadian, so it's kind of like close cousins.
I mean, I live here. I think there are really horrible parts of US law. This one particular point, I think is a great thing. The freedom of speech in the Constitution. Yeah. That the state can't get involved in political or religious speech and can't penalize. Like private people, this is one misconception about free speech. Like, You can choose not to go to a business because you don't like what the owner says, but the government can't shut the business down because they don't like what the owner says.
Yeah, and it's the things like, again, in this whole maybe 15, 20-minute intro, there were so many amazing things. What the FCC guys they call it in the UK flim-flamming. So he says one thing, 6 months later says another thing. What Donald Trump said, no, we need to protect free speech, is the most amazing thing. And then obviously says the complete opposite of it. I just found it absolutely, like, from my point of view, very fascinating. And I've spent today with various people. We don't, like, late night television shows here are not a thing in the UK, right? Even though we imported James Corden to you, it's not a thing. We have
you got rid of him. You didn't send us a great export there, I gotta say.
We got rid of him. And we have a couple of sort of comedians who have,
like the Graham Norton show, I guess but it's not really it's not a late night talk show. It's more like a panel show. I mean,
exactly. Correct. 100% right. And it's not a thing. Whereas I know late night TV shows and hosts are ingrained in the American psyche. When I was really young, I had come to America for a holiday, and I remember David Letterman, Jay Leno, and Arsenio Hall. Do you know who that is?
Of course.
Right. So, and I remember them being, and like my uncle would stay awake and he'd sit there and watch it and he'd be howling with laughter. It was so topical and political and funny. And I remember that being ingrained. So every time I see an American talk, and I think it's great, like Saturday Night Live. I might not find Saturday Night Live particularly funny. I might not like the late night talk show host format. Like, there's one guy, you mentioned him to me yesterday. He just laughs at everything. He drives me insane.
Oh, Jimmy Fallon.
My God.
Yeah.
Like, you'll drop a shoe, he'll howl with laughter. Whatever guest comes on, he'll howl with laughter. You go to the toilet, he'll howl with laughter. But, I guess the American audience suck it up because he's still on air, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only one I really watch is Jimmy Kimmel. I wouldn't say I'm a diehard fan, but I do watch it occasionally. And then I watch John Oliver on HBO, but that's a little different. It's less like a...
It's more of a political thing. Like, the Trevor Noah one, what was that called? Was that
The Daily Show, yeah.
The Daily Show. But I used to love, and I still think he's amazing, David Letterman. I used to... Yeah. The way he engaged with people... Yeah. And
he's the best.
Yeah, he's the best. And the fact is... There's so many things I learned in that small segment, which is why I wanted to talk about, is that he looked up to people like Howard Stern, David Letterman. He mentioned that in his monologue, Jay Leno. And I thought, wow, there's somebody who's at the top of his game mentioning people that inspired him. And we always talk about people that inspire us, that, make us go to radio. And I thought that was nice. He talked about the people that genuinely hate him, hate his program, hate everything to do with him, which we've got a few of, David. And how they reached out to him and made him feel better. And he was very honest. He wasn't making fun of somebody who was killed. He was just kind of saying, No, I think he maybe even, he didn't necessarily say he regrets what he said, but he certainly, the interpretation of what he said, he wasn't trying to make light of a murder, but who would? I mean, I guess there are people there that would make light of murder, but that's insane. I really liked when he said, I do have to say something legally or something like that. I do have to make a statement on behalf of the network. And then he pulls out a pre-prepared statement and then it's just explaining to people how they can uncancel their accounts. Subscription. Fantastic. It goes to show what sort of person he was. And I thought it was brilliant, Yeah,
it was well done. I was hoping for more. He had this moment. People get these moments in their career. I'm thinking of Tig Notaro, who's this American comedian who got diagnosed with cancer and then immediately taped a special, and just this profound cancer diagnosis, I might die vibe really made the special something greater than it could have been.
Did he die?
It's a woman. No.
Did she
recovered.
die?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a waste of time.
No, she did not die. But I was hoping for something. But I guess I was comforted by the fact that Jimmy Kimmel showed up and he was just kind of himself.
Okay.
And he gave the apology. He teared up. But I was hoping for something maybe a little more profound. But I was also comforted that it just felt like a normal show. It was an important show. It was a show a lot of people were watching. But it just felt like the same wisecracks, the same type of comedy. Yeah. It's the show he would have wanted to do and not really capitalizing it to say something too profound. So maybe I'm comforted by the fact that something deeply profound didn't really happen. It was just a pretty sincere apology and a decent monologue. But on the other hand, I did enjoy it, I gotta say.
David, see, in that 25 seconds that you mentioned, my mind has jumped, right? So I wanted him to get on and be so hardcore, but then at the same time, angry, look what they've done to me. But then at the same time, what he did was perfect. And then I wanted it to be just kind of washed over, and this is a power play, but then he brought Robert De Niro on. Brilliant. And then I wanted it to think, but then that Guillermo guy said something. It was, Guillermo. I thought it was tour de force. I thought it was brilliant. I watched it like, I don't do this. This is why it's such a big thing. I don't do this. I don't sit there watching this. I watched it 4 times. I just couldn't sort of get my head round how he did it, what he did it, and how I thought he was really, he showed his professionalism, and I loved that, and I aspire to that.
Yeah, I think if he'd showed up angry, that would have been the wrong call. I think that would have just shown, I don't know, there's something about forgiveness. He even talked about forgiveness in his monologue. There's something about taking moments like that in your life gracefully, which I think is super admirable. Tony Five is our foreign correspondent. He'll be joining us later in the show for advice for your tomorrow self from yesterday. Tony, thanks for being here.
Pleasure, baby.
Coming up after the break, Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday, we'll discuss some of the most reported forms of regret older folks have. Maybe some of them apply to you. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
This episode is brought to you by Jack Daniels. Jack Daniels and music are made for each other. They share a rhythm in the craft of making something timeless, while being a part of legendary nights. From backyard jams to sold-out arenas, there's a song in every toast. Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Jack Daniels and Old No. 7 are registered trademarks. Tennessee whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume. Jack Daniel Distillery, Lynchburg, Tennessee.
Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late night's fresh perspective. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Today we talk about life lessons as they come to living with regrets. It is Tuesdays with Gary here on Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. I'll explain what that confusion means in a moment. But we are joined by social worker and therapist Gary Direnfeld to talk about regret. Gary, I don't regret having you on the show today.
Oh, that's good to know. I don't regret being here either. As a matter of fact, this is one of the highlights of my week, believe it or not.
You're too kind.
No, I'm sincere.
I worry about you. What's going on with your week, such that this is your highlight, but I appreciate that you said it. Have you had a psych evaluation recently? These are questions that we don't know.
I'm apparently normal. That's like Sheldon Cooper, right?
Apparently. Tuesdays with Maury, for those who don't know, that's what I was referring to, is this memoir about a guy who has meetings with a dying former professor, Maury, and this guy is oddly accepted that he's going to die, and so he just kind of teaches his former student life lessons about love and relationships, kind of like the meaning of life stuff about how to deal with regrets. And then at the end of the book, sorry, spoiler, the guy dies. And just bring tissue if you're going to read it. Wherever you go, if you're on the subway reading this book, bring tissue. Because I read the thing, I think I was crying the whole read. It's a great book, though, Tuesdays with Maury. And that's why I call this Tuesdays with Gary on Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. All right, I set up the book. This is all motivated by someone who interviewed a lot of baby boomers about regrets in their life. What are some people's common regrets, Gary?
You know, when people, first of all, before we get to the regrets, there was a psychologist, Erik Erikson, and his claim to fame as a developmental psychologist was he included the later stages of life, and he was the first developmental psychologist to do that. And he says, look, the last stage of life is called integrity versus despair. And you have to pretend that you have this ledger in front of you. And with everything that you do in life, you're adding to the ledger.
Oh, no. I know where you're going with this, and I'm in the negative.
End of
I'm
life,
for sure in the negative, Gary.
All you can do is tally the ledger. And if the tally is, things about which you feel good is greater than things about which you feel poorly, you die with integrity. If it's poorly, you die in despair. And of course, the goal is to die with that sense of integrity, that wholeness. And so I'm a boomer. I'm the tail end of the boomer at 69 years of age. And I reflect on relationships, which is typical for boomers.
It is. Yeah. I think when we die, our relationships are really it. I mean, I know it's a cliche, but this whole I can't take it with you, although maybe you can. I mean, some of these pharaohs were buried with all kinds of gold. But in general, like money, your career, things like that. You can't take them with you. Now, career maybe in the sense that you make a lot of relationships with your career. Maybe you can take those with you. But yeah, one of the common regrets that older people say they had is not spending enough time with their loved ones.
That's right. And so, my dad, who died at age 60, I was 26 or so, I think, when he passed away. He was a workaholic. He wasn't an alcoholic. He wasn't abusive. He was proud of his kids and family. However, he was always working, so he just wasn't available. I was an angry teenager, the result of that. He took ill in my young 20s, and I wound up nursing him for several years before his passing. Because of that, it made up for the distance. And then you got to know, as a parent with our son, who's 41 now, but when he was a kid, I was a workaholic too. And I remember my wife coming into my office, arms folded, and I can feel the heat of her eyes on the back of my neck.
Wow.
And I know I'm screwing up something. I don't know what it is. And finally I say, okay, what is it? And she says, your son came in to ask for a few minutes of your time and you blew him off. And now he's sitting in the basement sulking.
Oh
God. Stick a knife in me.
That's $10,000 off the ledger right there.
I am done. So I went down, and look, all he wanted was a few minutes of my time to watch a video of kids in New York playing pickup basketball. He was into that at that age. So spent 6 minutes with him max, and all of a sudden he was energized and went out to play. That was a turning point for me in terms of relationships and being available.
You're lucky your wife forced the lesson of regretting spending time with your loved ones on you. Otherwise, you might not have seen your kids so much in the household.
It's true. And so, the lessons of my age and of boomers, we kind of hope that people can cotton on to it a lot younger and earlier. You're in your 30s.
I'm 39. I'm 40s. Just I stare at like the barrel of a gun.
You're pushing it. You are pushing it. So if you want to know how a boomer feels, ask a boomer. And I'm telling, this is Tuesdays with Maury.
It is Tuesdays with Gary on Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Go ahead. If you want to know how someone of an older generation feels, what do you ask them?
Ask them, do you have any regrets? My dad lied to me. I asked him, do you have any regrets? And he said no. And to this day, I don't believe it. I really don't. I think he was trying to appease me at a time that was near his death.
My grandmother, for maybe the last 15 years of her life, whenever I didn't call her enough or see her enough or acted in any kind of annoying way or way where I brushed her off, she would threaten to die, to the point where it was like funny, I'm not always going to be around, David, and you won't have called your booby. Eventually, she made good on her promise, even though I didn't think she would. And I do regret not spending enough time with my grandparents. However, my mom is so annoying, like lovably annoying, but so annoying. And a younger me would have been like, she's too annoying to hang out with. I don't want the questions. I don't want the turbulence in my life. I don't want to have every life decision I've made questioned by my mother. But now her antics and her overbearingness are just funny to me. And that feeling of knowing I'll regret it if I say no is kind of overwhelming. So I fly and spend time with them, even though they still annoy me. I'm sure I annoy them. Because I don't want to pass. I don't want to hit my 60s. I don't want to hit my 70s. My parents aren't going to live forever. They're in their mid 70s. I don't want to feel like I didn't spend enough time with them or got to really know them.
Fabulous realization on your part, David.
I mean, if we'd had this conversation 15 years ago in my 20s or 10 years ago, I would have been like, I'm not calling my mom. But now I love the abuse. I love that she questions my career and my life decisions at every turn and asks me, do you really not want to have children? Every time. Like, it's as if she's never asked me that question.
So the thing is, in our teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. In each decade, there are things that preoccupy us. And somewhere in that, the 20s and 30s, well, the 20s is having fun. The 30s is kind of settling down and you're pushing the limit. Am I going to have kids, not have kids? The 40s is I got to chase the buck because I want to make sure I'm starting to see the hill that's cresting up ahead. I got to have enough. And 50s to 60s, it's, oh my goodness, life is catching up with me. Health is catching up with me. Relationships are catching up with me. So there are things that preoccupy us in each decade of our life. And it's hard at 40 to have the wisdom and the insight of a 60, 70, 80, 90-year-old.
Another commonly reported regret is one letting fear hold them back in life, not change things, not change careers, not make certain decisions. That is a commonly reported regret. It's Tuesdays with Gary on Therapy Thursdays. On a Wednesday, we're talking life regrets. We'll continue this conversation in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
When your therapist won't take your calls anymore, there's always the last show with David Cooper.
It's Tuesdays with Gary. I love that. On Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. For those who don't know, there's a book called Tuesdays with Maury about life lessons and regrets and things like this. And so that's what we're talking about, regrets in life and how to handle them. Gary Direnfeld is a social worker, a therapist, and he joins us every Wednesday night for Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Gary, the days are confusing, but you're here. And I'm really enjoying this conversation. I want to talk about a major regret that older people reported having, which is letting fear in life hold them back. I know this one all too well. But talk to me a little bit about it. Is it something that you have experienced or your friends or family have experienced, regretting not making certain risky decisions in life because of fear?
So, it's funny because on the one hand, personally, I'm risk adverse, but on the other hand, I've conquered a lot of fears and taken a lot of risks. I've reinvented myself. I've always been a social worker throughout my career. And I've also been entrepreneurial. So I've been in and out of different businesses, all, to do with the public good, but businesses nonetheless. So I've taken those risks. I've lived worrying that we might lose our house when, if a business venture went poor, which, it did, that happened. We didn't lose the house, but I was afraid of it. So I haven't let fear personally hold me back. Having said that, way too many, I should be careful about being judgmental, many folks do let that fear control them. And so they stay in situations that aren't good with the fear is, hey, it could always be worse. But the truth is, it could always be better. And I take life kind of as a big adventure. And I also personally want to enjoy what I do. And so whenever I personally haven't enjoyed what I do, I change it. I do something else. I do it differently. So I've been, in a sense, cuffed upside the head by life, which has forced me to change what I do. But I've learned to embrace that. Don't run from it.
So I switched careers at 34. I was a software developer. I worked in Silicon Valley. I was doing radio and media stuff as a hobby. And my mother describes the story as saying that one day I woke up in the morning and decided I hated money. That's how she describes it. Love my mom. Not going to regret not spending time with her. She's coming to visit me in New York, but let's not talk about my mom. So I changed careers, and fear kind of motivated me being fearless, which is to say I had dreamed of being in radio for, the 5 years before I quit my job, at least. I think I did my first radio show in 2015. And I was about 35, and this concept, somebody must have put this concept in my head because I don't think I came up with it. But the fear of not trying became greater than the fear of trying, which is to say this idea that I would hit 40, try to have a career in radio and media and fail utterly became less scary than not trying to do that. I thought to myself, I'd feel so stupid if I didn't try. I'm picturing myself in my cushy job that's fit, that's safe and not really happy and miserable, and life is just, the days are passing by. I pictured myself in that life, my old life, hitting 40 versus trying what I'm doing now and it being an utter failure. And the not trying became more scary to me. So in some sense, fear made me fearless. Fear gave me the courage to overcome my fears. Because this idea of not trying.
Yeah, the paradox, yeah.
Like I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try,
I have known you, I'm losing track of time.
You met me really at the beginning curve of my professional broadcasting career.
Yeah, I'd say at least 4 years you and I have been doing radio and podcasts together.
We have, and I have a theory that every bit of creative work taken seriously enough, I call this David Cooper's law. It's a real law. If you're a creative individual or you work in performing, if you take it seriously enough, you will end up managing it with a spreadsheet. So I have detailed notes. I could actually look up the first day we met.
That's amazing.
Because every year of broadcasting work I've ever done is in a spreadsheet, but not important. Yeah, it was 4 years ago.
So I've been a part of your career. I've followed your career. And I got to tell you, I hold you in high regard because I see how you have tried,
failed,
and then hunkered down, and talk about putting a nose to the grindstone. That's a nice boomer expression.
Yeah. Beating my head against the wall.
Yeah, you've worked it, David, and you've had your comeback. And talk about pressing on that fear button, yet what people have to do is go. I think you have to go all in. You can't dabble with some of this stuff if you're looking at a career move.
And you can't change the past. Like I look at people who got it, who studied broadcasting in college and volunteered at their university's radio stations at like 19. And I see people like that in this industry. And on one hand, I'm kind of like jealous. But on the other hand, like all my life experience leading me up to becoming a performer in my 30s has served me well. Maybe I read Tuesdays with Morrie and this idea of not letting fear hold you back. Maybe it got in my head. I don't know. But yeah, I think there are people that are stuck in their jobs and that's totally legitimate. They need that next paycheck. They're supporting a family. But if you if your life allows for you to take risks, you might regret not taking them.
That's it. And so, some of the risks I've taken really didn't pan out. Like I said, there was a time, it was year 2000, I thought we were going to lose the house. I and my wife, Arlene, we happened to be fortunate in that a cousin of mine ponied up $25,000, which saved my bacon, because we did lose substantially. The internet was just starting to blossom around prior to year 2000. And we were heavily invested. We had Healthy Canadian, a program, and then we had the internet crash of 2000, and our revenues went from $500,000 a year in our second year to zero. Like
that's
zero.
A problem.
Yeah, zero with the internet crash. People, may not remember that. I'm older. But this is about taking risks. So you stick to your knitting in a sense. You hunker down. You do what you have to do to survive. But honestly, I don't have regrets for not having tried what I want to try.
Another one that's reported is health, like people in their later life, 70s, 80s, regret not taking care of themselves earlier, diet, exercise, that kind of stuff. I'm kind of at the cusp. I told myself when I turned 40, I'd get fit, stop eating burritos and get off the couch. I'm 39 and a half. The half really sells it. I'm 39 and a half. But yeah, that's another one. And you've had some health scares.
I had a quadruple bypass 3.25 years ago that I did not see coming. I've eaten reasonably well. I was maybe 10, 15 pounds overweight, so not horrendous, but some. And, fortunately, I got a new lease on life with the surgery. But what a wake-up call that was. And, these are things that we don't typically think about in our younger years. So and my mother, she would warn me because, of course, she was that much older. So health, our fears, and our relationships, keep them in mind as you move forward.
I am here with Gary Direnfeld. He's a therapist, a social worker. It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Gary, this was such a great chat. Thanks for talking to me about regrets and life lessons.
Great to be with you, Maury.
All right, Tuesdays with Gary. After the break, I was surprised to find that you can be lonely in a group of people, your friends, people who support you. And there's certain traits that make you more likely to have this form of loneliness. That research coming up.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Abercrombie denim is everything right now. Denim should feel like this. Confident, easy, like your butt has never looked better. If you didn't know, Abercrombie's Curve Love denim went viral in 2019 for eliminating waist gap, and it's still a game changer. Between that and their classic fits with a straighter line from waist to hip, the perfect denim does exist. Shop Abercrombie denim in the app, online, and in store.
Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Have you ever felt lonely in a crowded room when you aren't actually alone? Have you noticed that feeling lonely when you're not alone can make you a little suspicious of others? Well, new research reveals that loneliness, not isolation, can be tied to paranoid thoughts when you're not even isolated. It's a curious finding. So how did researchers come to this conclusion? Well, I'm here with someone who's worked on that. His name is Dr. Błażej Misiak. He's a psychiatrist at Wrocław Medical University in Poland, a professor as well. Błażej, welcome to the program.
Hello, everybody.
Starting simple, what is the difference between loneliness and social isolation? I kind of thought those two were the same, but it might be important to separate them for this conversation.
Yeah, I think that this is a very important question to start our conversation, because loneliness is a subjective feeling that your social contacts are insufficient. So there is a discrepancy between desired and actual social bonds. So it's subjective, right? And social isolation is objective. It means that one's social bonds are below some average, let's say.
Interesting. And anecdotally, like I've been with friends invited out, like at a party or at a concert or something, and I felt lonely, and I thought it was just me. Like I thought I was just kind of crazy or something. But this is actually a common feeling, that you can feel lonely when you're in a social environment where you actually have support and ties.
Yeah, that's the main point, that you might have a lot of friends, connections, but you can still feel lonely among them.
I used to do stand-up comedy, and stand-up comedians, they have like typically a lot of friends, but they are some of the most lonely people that you've ever met. How do you study this? How do you actually look into people's feelings of loneliness versus how actually socially isolated they are?
Yeah, basically there are many questionnaires, validated questionnaires that capture the construct of loneliness. And we did a population-based study in Poland of over 5,000 adults. And we repeated the same survey over time. So we did it across 2 time points spanning 6 months to cover loneliness, social isolation, paranoid thoughts, some other symptoms of depression, anxiety, of course, socio-demographic characteristics, but also the things known as cognitive biases, which are known as systemic errors in people's thinking.
Interesting. And so when you talk to people, did you find those who had strong social ties did feel lonely out with their friends?
Well, basically, our main aim was to better understand what is actually the connection between social isolation, loneliness, and paranoia. We hypothesized that the way people think about other people might be the connection. So some biases in their thinking might connect these constructs. So basically, we were not very interested in how often the people are isolated or lonely. We just wanted to better understand the critical mechanisms linking these phenomena.
So give me an example about how paranoid thoughts might creep into an everyday situation, maybe work, maybe in the classroom, maybe out with your friends. Like, how can someone feel paranoid in those moments?
Yeah, first we should know that paranoid thoughts are not always something that should be perceived as pathological.
Yeah.
They are quite common in the society. So basically, the term paranoia lies on the continuum from subclinical, very mild expressions to severe manifestation like delusions, right? So that's the first point. And you might have ideas of reference here so that people are laughing, that people are talking about you, gossiping about you, or you might have ideas of persecution. So you might think about the people that they want to hurt you in some ways. So these are the 2, I would say, subdomains of paranoia.
These are thoughts that I think occur for a lot of people. I think we typically label them as social anxiety. Like, I'm out with my friends, but I'm worried they don't like me or don't want me here.
Yeah, sure. The point is that, in people who feel lonely, what other researchers also found is that they are focused on some threats related to other people. So lonely people focus on other people, look at them through the possibility of rejection, through the possibility of evaluation, through the possibility of, mistrust. And that we hypothesize this is the link between loneliness and paranoia. And our study basically confirmed that observation, that hypothesis.
Practical implications from these findings, like when we talk about loneliness, the loneliness epidemic, we talk about a solution to it being community building. But I think there's this subset of people who feel lonely and might actually have community. What would you recommend as treatment for them, or what would you recommend they do if they're having these feelings, but in fact, they have a decent amount of community?
Yeah, what our study found is that cognitive biases are really important in that connection. Of course, this is not the only connection bridging loneliness and paranoia, but the thing that should be addressed by therapeutic interventions. So basically, changing the way of thinking about other people would be the key here to get rid of loneliness. This can be done, for instance, in some cases through cognitive behavioral therapy. So there are many interventions now available which can be helpful in this case.
So talking to a therapist. Now this...
For instance,
Yeah, as an example, this is a large population study based in Poland. I live in the U.S. The show also is broadcast in Canada. Do you think these findings would be similar in other countries and other cultures?
Yeah, I think these findings might be relevant for the whole society. Why? Because there were previous studies showing some similar cross-sectional associations in different cultures. Studies showing that generally biased cognition, biased way of thinking about the society is strongly linked to loneliness. So this is something that generally extends these findings.
And you were mentioning cognitive biases before. Are there any examples or particular ones people should watch out for so that they can identify they're feeling this way and it may not have to be with the fact that they have not enough friends?
Yeah, for instance, something bad happens in your life and you attribute it to other people, not to yourself or just to accident.
Interesting. As my mother calls it, being a person blamer.
Yeah, that's an attributional bias, for instance. And also you might not engage in new relationships because you are afraid of being rejected, right? So this is also something that prevents you from engagement in social bonds.
Well, Błażej, I think it's really cool that you put to research what I felt sometimes, with my friends. I thought I was alone in it. And I think a lot of people can identify with these feelings despite having decent social circles. I appreciate you coming on the show and discussing your research with me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Błażej Misiak is a psychiatry professor at Wrocław Medical University in Poland. Coming up next, one of my favorite times of the week. We've got a reverse time machine here on the last show. We get advice from our past selves. We play it today and then follow up with our past selves. It's advice for your tomorrow self from yesterday, today. Confusing? I know. If you've got advice for your tomorrow self, call us, share it. The number coming right up.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
So good. New fall arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Vince, Kurt Geiger London, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club at Nordstrom Rack to unlock exclusive discounts on your favorite brands. Shop new arrivals first and more. Plus, get an extra 5% off every Rack purchase with a Nordstrom credit card. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Advice for your tomorrow self from yesterday, or maybe from today for tomorrow. If you're confused, you're not alone. This is what happens on the last show with David Cooper and Tony Five.
It's everyone's favorite and most confused time of the week here with Tony Five. Advice for your tomorrow self from yesterday, today. Not confusing at all. It's a very easy to understand thing we do here on the show. Tony, welcome in.
Even the music is confusing, David. Yes, so I provided some advice yesterday for today, for tomorrow. But David, I did it from an amazing location.
I do know where you recorded your advice from, and you are insane. And also, it's exactly the kind of content that we want for this show. But just so we don't get in trouble for regulatory purposes, the procedure Tony was going under was like a medical one. This is educational. We're learning about it. You're going to learn something today. Boom. This is educational content, so we can't get in trouble for what people are about to hear.
David, this is advice for today, for tomorrow, from yesterday, live from the colonic irrigation table. Weirdly, I'm here on my back, filling up slowly with water whilst I excavate myself into a clear tube, listening to Barry White. And strangely, this is not the weirdest segment we've ever had on the show. My advice for tomorrow, for today, for yesterday, is to have colonics more, because the stuff that's come out of me, my goodness, it looks alien, bruv. It looks alien.
I hate you so much, Tony.
I don't know. I've sent you videos. We're going to post it on social media for those that can be bothered. David does like stuff like that, but I was on my back.
A colonic is, first of all, a colon, or as you call it, a colon cleanse.
Yes.
Again, this is educational, everybody. And you do this how often?
Well, again, you're going to think I'm joking, but this is 100% tea. I got a Groupon for it. I mean, this is content. If anybody wanted content, I got a Groupon.
Is this like medically directed by a doctor? Or is this something more like going to a spa for your health? Like, why did you do this in the first place? Why did you get this Groupon? How did you start doing it? Who told you it's a good idea? I've got so many questions.
Okay, so the Groupon was either that or learning Italian. I'm not going to Italy soon, so that's why I picked the colon cleanse or the colonic irrigation. And it is meant to be very good for you. Now, those of you who haven't heard, I was quite ill at the beginning of the year. I'm trying to invest in my health. I'm trying to invest in things that are good for me, both mental health-wise, physical health-wise. And apparently the gut biome is the center of so many things that happen in the body. And every bit of your health comes from your gut. And these are the sort of thoughts, it's like the second brain. And you carry so much unwanted matter in your colon, undigested food, which can cause problems.
Why do you think it's unwanted? Like, what if it's actually okay for it to be in there?
It's not. It causes toxins. Says the toxins, says the stuff that's come out of me. David, you would not want the stuff that's come out of me. Trust me. And that has no place in the body.
If I pumped your stomach, you'd look at it and say, wow, that stuff was in my stomach. That's bad. But it would actually be bad to get a stomach pump. And so why is this good?
Okay, some of the matter that comes out is rotten meat. Right, it's rotten food that has not been broken down. And physically, because of the shape of the colon, which you imagine has got various L shapes and bends, the matter can't go round. And essentially, it could have been there for years.
But we evolved as apes with jammed up. There are people that say it's not good for your health. I don't think it's widely accepted by every doctor that this is a good thing to do.
Wow. Listen. Cavemen did not go to McDonald's, my friend. And I think with the advent of fast food and all the stuff you're pumping into your body anyway, can it really be that bad to get it out of your system? I completely agree with you.
Yes,
but
there can
I don't think it's doing you any benefits.
My understanding is that there has been research and there's no link to health benefits like in the medical community, but I could be wrong. I'm not a doctor. You're saying there are. I guess people should just do their own research, but I've been told that you shouldn't do them.
Okay, let's take all of that into account. The amount that came out of me, I've lost about 3% in body weight. So forget about all the health benefits. I'm lighter. I mean, it's like a weight loss thing. Forget about Monjaro. Let's talk about Poop Jaro.
Was there a man or a woman in there while you were recording your advice for yesterday? They must have thought you were a nutter.
Well, to be honest with you, it's not that much difficult anyway. There was a woman who basically lubes the tube, and you're left to your own devices. You're meant to place the instrument inside yourself. The water goes up.
It's DIY? You don't have a professional do it?
My friend, it's DIY. I even inquired as to how much one of the machines would cost in my bedroom.
This is the Groupon. I feel like at some places they must do it for you.
Yeah, this is where the Groupon lies. And it's weird, but there are places that obviously... there is somebody who puts it in and helps you to put it out and blah, 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 blah. This one isn't. It's very private. It's not smelly. You don't feel anything. And, I see. I mean, I did read about people that have said, no, it's not really, it's a bit of a fad. But even if it's a fad, the placebo effect of feeling, one, lighter, and two, and I have had it in the past. My skin does feel good. It does make you drink more water. Maybe it's encouraging. Now, for all of that, I could just drink more water with having a pipe up my butt. But let's be honest now, mate, I wasn't going to lose that Groupon, fella.
Well, I have one friend who swears by it too. My friend Thompson. Not important. I don't even know what to say. You recorded this in this place. You are, you know what? Thank you for doing exactly what the show needed is what I want to say.
David, do not ever think that I am not fully supportive of this show and what you're after.
All right, here's my advice from my yesterday self for today, except I just recorded it at the commercial break because the guest I had on before you, Tony, really got me thinking. So here's my advice.
Hello, David. It's your advice for your yesterday's, tomorrow's self from the commercial break. This is advice from 5 minutes ago, but you were just interviewing someone about feeling alone when you're around a group of people, which is something you felt you suffered from and no one could relate to. It's in fact very common. So the next time you feel alone in a group of people, just take a deep breath. There's nothing wrong with you. People do feel this way. And yeah, I just wanted you to sort of really listen to me and listen to that interview that just played before the commercial break. It's normal to be lonely in groups of people. That's your advice.
That is absolutely banging. I feel like that all the time. So I was out with 9 people yesterday, weirdly enough, at a meat restaurant, which is probably why yesterday's colonic was so bad.
Rotten
but anyway,
meat, Tony.
But a lot of meat. But basically, I feel like that. I'm the center of that group. So I'm the one that knows everybody, that's brought them all together. I feel I have to entertain and be the life and soul. And actually, I feel very lonely in it. And I feel like I'm putting on an act, a sort of mask on my face to be that person. I am very uncomfortable in social situations, even to the point in your Thanksgiving party. I come and I do feel like difficult in it.
The researcher called it paranoia, but he was very quick to say, when I say paranoia, I'm not talking about like a pathologized. He was a psychiatrist. He's just like, he meant more like social anxiety. Those anxieties you have about not fitting in can make you feel lonely. And it's more about your struggle through those anxieties. He was saying one way that helps is having a therapist. And yes, talking to my therapist does help. In fact, I was talking to my shrink just yesterday about how I felt lonely at this thing I went to this weekend where I knew everybody, you know?
Yes.
And I never really talked about this feeling, and I felt some comfort that it was so common that researchers like did a study and understood it. I just never felt it was something I could talk about or I was embarrassed about it. And so next time I feel lonely when I'm out in a little group where I actually have community and I shouldn't feel lonely, I'm just going to take a deep breath and think to myself, it's more about paranoia or social anxiety and my own issues than it is about whether I'm actually socially isolated.
And you didn't think it was that common. I would say it's very common amongst people. I would say even very famous people who look like the life and soul of the party probably feel like that.
You know, they say stand-up comedians are some of the most loneliest people there are, and they're at least successful ones are generally quite well loved. I don't know. I'm glad I'm talking about it now. It's kind of like a weight off my shoulders. Anyway, that's my advice, to just be aware of this, and I'm going to go back and listen to that interview tomorrow.
A way to steal my thunder, David, with something completely sensible whilst I'm on a colonic irrigation table. Cheers for that.
Tony Five is our foreign correspondent from London, England. Tony, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
What happens when a 24-year-old teacher trades the busy streets of a city in North America for the rice fields in Japan? Cheaper rent, better balance, a whole new way of seeing life. I've certainly been curious what it would be like to live off-continent. And after the break, someone who can tell us what it means to take that leap.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Ever wonder what it's like to get away? I'm not just talking about hopping in a car and driving an hour away. At 24, Lexi Brooke, an English teacher and content creator, swapped Atlanta for rural Japan, where the ramen, plentiful, the rent, $238, and life feels maybe a whole lot freer. She joins us now to share what it's like teaching English and living in the Japanese countryside on the cheap. Lexi, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
You swapped Atlanta classrooms teaching in the U.S. for Japanese rice fields. At what moment in your life do you think, yes, this is something I'm going to do?
It was a few years ago. I was at a private school and I'd been there for 3 years at that particular school. And I decided I'm not a big fan of this school anymore. I'm kind of miserable. I'm working 12 hours straight and I don't make enough money. I just want something new. So I asked myself, what would I be doing in an ideal world? I decided I'd be traveling. I need to get out and see the world and learn myself. I know I'm a teacher, but I'm a lifelong learner too. So I'm like, well, traveling's expensive. I need to grow, but I also want to give back. I think teaching English could be the happy medium to all the things that I like to do. So I got certified to teach English, and the rest is kind of been history.
Had you been to Japan before?
No, I'd never been to Asia before, actually. I had never been on this side of the world. I traveled to Europe a couple of times, been to the Caribbean multiple times, but never out to Asia, never to Japan. It was sort of a all or nothing bet that I would enjoy it here.
That is quite a, I don't know, courageous, risky, maybe slightly insane decision. And the bet, are you glad you made it? Like, what is it like? What's the contrast between life in Atlanta, your job in Atlanta, and teaching English in Japan?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in Atlanta, I was working quite a lot. As I mentioned, I worked at that private school in the morning time from maybe 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Add in a 1 hour long drive from my home to the actual job, which is kind of common in Atlanta, especially with the traffic. So I was out of the house forever just to get to that private school. And then I had another job teaching English at night to adults for another 4 hours, I think. So I didn't get off that job till 10:30 p.m. and get home till 11 p.m. So it was just super long work days. I was always exhausted. It's never enough. When you're a teacher in America, you're always giving everything you have, working in your free time, no bathroom breaks. Parents are calling you all the time. Meanwhile, in Japan, I work for between 4 and 6 hours a day. Today, I
Oh my
worked
God,
4
I'm
hours.
so jealous. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty great. My boss never expects too much from me, which is fairly rare in Japan, depending on the job. But I think I have the best boss ever. If I ever work too much, he's like, "Slow down. You're going too fast. You're working too hard. Take a break."
I imagine, having never been there, you do not and did not speak Japanese moving in this country.
Correct. I studied Spanish for like 12 years. So my Spanish was conversational and my English was obviously perfect, but that's not much use in Japan. I mean, the English is if you're in Tokyo or major cities, but the Japanese was non-existent.
How does one get like a driver's license? How does one do basic things in this country without speaking the language?
Well, a lot of the kind of paperwork type things I did while I was still in America, like getting the visa. I have an international driver's permit that I got from my local AAA. So those kinds of things were done. But when I have to go to the government buildings, sometimes I'll bring along my boss and he'll translate for me. The last time I went to the government building, I did not have a translator. And I was so proud of managing everything on my own because I have been teaching myself Japanese over the last couple months. It's just been its own thing. But really, since my job is in English and my coworkers are foreigners, and there's a lot of foreigners in this countryside town that I hang out with. I practice talking to people on the train and things like that, and a lot of body language reading, and context clues if there's situations where I don't understand. But now that I have been studying some, it's much easier to understand what's going on, even if I can't speak it myself.
I want to talk about some differences, like basic differences. When you arrived, there was an emergency bag. Was that in your apartment? Tell me what a Japanese emergency bag for the countryside has.
Is it terrible to say I haven't opened it?
But it's supposed to be for earthquakes and tsunamis, and that just like is a standard thing people have.
Yeah, you have to be prepared for everything. Actually, during the week of my birthday this summer, I was traveling around Japan. I was in Kyoto and Osaka. I went to Mount Fuji and climbed up there. I was very far away from my countryside town. Yet I got a notification that there was actually a typhoon. And some people in town were evacuating to taller buildings and going through their whole rehearsals. Those that taught in public schools, they were doing the evacuations with their students, but I didn't experience that. I've experienced a couple of earthquakes, but none enough where I had to break out the emergency water and the satellite phones and all of those things. Luckily, I hope it doesn't happen while I'm here. Because in Atlanta, we don't get natural disasters, so I'm woefully under practiced in that realm.
Let's talk about the teaching. You teach kids as young as 3, adults as old as in their 70s. Which age group do you really enjoy the best?
Oh, it changes all the time. It changes all the time. I think that my favorite people to teach are ones that are actually excited and interested in English. Some students come because their grades at school aren't the best and they need some more support. Others come because they feel like they need it for work or for school. But the ones who come just because they think English is fun and cool and they want to speak is great. Because prying conversation out of people is not easy. For 40 minutes, you have to sit with someone and you're asked, what's your favorite food? Tofu. Why do you like it? 'Cause, okay, we have 40 minutes of this.
You've created these amazing videos online about your story, about what life is like. People seem to really enjoy them. They resonate with people. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because, well, that's a really great question. Maybe because I'm a young person who didn't have everything figured out. I don't speak Japanese yet. I'm not some millionaire who's moving to Tokyo and living this amazing, lavish life and just traveling around the world like every other travel influencer, though all props to them. I wish it could be me, but I'm just a person with a job trying to make the most out of my situation. And I think that when I share my story, people can see that, hey, maybe this is possible. Maybe I can do it. And I try to dispel some of the anxiety around different situations like moving or driving in Japan or going to the onsen, which recently a lot of people were like, I needed this. I didn't know what to do. I'm so scared. So I'm just happy to be that kind of like older sister person for people.
I think a lot of people like in North America are thinking of moving maybe to Europe, maybe getting out. Like you did it.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are struck by that. You do plan on moving back though. I mean, your life sounds so great now. Why this end date to it all?
Well, before I even left, I had already arranged for it to be a year. Some people, when they heard that I'm going back, they thought maybe I'm running away from Japan or that I'm getting kicked out of Japan or that I can't get another visa. My job has actually desperately asked me many, many times to stay for as long as I possibly want to. And my friends here are great. All of that is wonderful. But I'm really, really close with my family. And I know that I'll never regret spending time with them while they're healthy and while they can still travel and do things. And the beautiful thing about a passport is that it keeps working. My passport will always be good. Japan is not the last country that I will go to.
Favorite food now that you live in Japan that you never ate in Atlanta?
I've always been a big foodie. I have a favorite Japanese restaurant in Atlanta that I think rivals Japan, actually.
But if you had to just pick one Japanese food for people to go out and try?
Just one. I think it'll be ramen, but not the cup noodles. Stay away from the cup noodles. It's not worth it. I can't even eat it anymore.
Well, you can find Lexi Brooke on TikTok at It's Lexi B. She's an English teacher, a content creator. Lexi, thanks for talking to me. This is a great interview. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a great time.
What if your loved one's ashes weren't ashes at all? Up next, the business turning departed folks' remains into touchable stones. It's kind of fascinating.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Attention all small biz owners. At the UPS Store, you can count on us to handle your packages with care. With our certified packing experts, your packages are properly packed and protected. And with our pack and ship guarantee, when we pack it and ship it, we guarantee it. Because your items arrive safe or you'll be reimbursed. Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, pricing, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today.
The last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
When your loved one passes, to memorialize them, instead of a box of ashes or an urn, imagine holding smooth stones that embody a life lived. Tonight, we'll talk about Parting Stone, a company offering a surprising new way to remember, grieve, and stay connected with your loved ones. I'm here with its founder, Justin Crowe. Justin, welcome to the program.
Hi, David. Thanks so much for having me on.
I gave a vague description of the product your company offers. I know there's many options. Can you tell me a little bit more how we go from ashes, or the idea of cremating a loved one, to a stone?
Yeah. So what we offer is a complete alternative to conventional ashes. So when a family is planning a death, instead of receiving ashes after the cremation, the families can choose to receive the remains in a form that resembles a collection of around 40 to 80 stones. And families do this because ashes can be a little bit awkward. They can be a little bit messy. They can look, you don't really want to look at them.
We've all seen The Big Lebowski when they go to scatter and then the dude gets covered with the ashes. They can be awkward. They're sort of a weird remnant of a loved one.
Right. And it's kind of our internal joke at the company is that we're ruining all of these like pop culture jokes about like ashes spilling out of urns because it solves those problems. The stones are actually clean. They're nice to touch. They're nice to hold. People travel with them. They give them to friends and family. And this is really what we're really finding is the solidified remains that we're producing are a tool for grief for these families.
So how does it all work? How do we go from somebody's, it's crude, but remains to these memorializing stones?
When a family chooses solidified remains at the funeral home ships us the ashes to our laboratory in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And what we do is we take the cremated remains, which are kind of like a granular kind of sand material. We refine them into a very fine powder, almost like flour. We add water to turn them into kind of a clay-like material. We form these stones, and the average person is maybe 60 stones. And then we fire them in a kiln, almost like ceramics. And so this is where the solidification takes place. And when we take them out of the kiln, the stones are a lot like ceramic. We then polish them and package them up and return them to the family. So it's 100% of the ashes are transformed into this new stone form.
It sounds like kind of a radical idea. There must be some scientific or engineering hurdles that you had to overcome to develop this method, to make it viable. I imagine the first few tries, it was like crumbling stones. Was this easy to do kind of scientifically, or was it kind of difficult?
Yeah, so we developed this technology about 6 years ago, just before the pandemic, and it was extremely challenging. This idea originally came about because of my own experience with loss, and I received the cremated remains of my grandfather back, and I talked to some other people about their experience with loss, and we had the ashes of my dog in our basement, and I thought that was weird. And then I realized there's 70 million other people in the United States that have the ashes of people in their homes. And that was kind of the catalyst for this idea of, did we have to be receiving ashes after cremation, or could we invent a new form of remains? And I have a background in ceramics, and so that was kind of the starting point for developing the technology. So I had a basic understanding of some material science as it related to art. But what we did was we got a grant with Los Alamos National Laboratories. We worked with a advanced material scientist to help us go through hundreds of tiny tests. So I would get on the phone with him each week, or on the video, I'd show him my tests, and he'd say, no, this one's not right. This one's right. Let's try this. Let's tweak the formula. Let's tweak the firing temperature. And after months of testing and refining, we eventually ended up with this process that allowed us to solidify the full amount of remains. It was super interesting process to go through.
Balancing when you deliver this product, the kind of technical requirements, the durability, the kind of lab with the more delicate emotional considerations of your customers, that must be kind of a difficult thing.
Yeah, I did not grow up in death care. Many people in death care came from death care. And so I am what people call a first generation death care professional, which I didn't know that existed pre this company. And there's a lot of expectations of the death care professionals and industry. There's also a lot of expectations of the families to do right by the families, to be respectful of those remains. We are handling one of the most treasured possessions in people's lives, which is the remains of their loved ones. These are things that are going to be passed down for generations. And so, one of the biggest challenges was, how do we create a space and a process that respects that, and makes sure that each loved one in our care is safe. And so, and that's actually a part of our business that I'm really proud of, is the chain of custody technology that we've developed and implemented. It's one of the most sophisticated in the death care space in North America that I've seen.
To put it crudely, you want to make sure that like the remains you're getting are the remains you want, and everything throughout the process is kind of kept track of and all that. The feedback, the response, an unnamed shark on Shark Tank called this a spectacular idea. From what I've seen, people do love this product, but on a more like individual level, what do people say when they finally get their loved ones' remains as stones? Like, what are your customers saying?
As you mentioned, we were at Shark Tank a couple of years ago, and the biggest challenge we have as a company that's created a new category, a new form of remains, is education. We need people to know when they choose cremation, they don't have to receive ashes back. There is now another option. And since launching, we've now worked with 10,000 families. Actually, I think we're at about 12,000 right now. 10,000 was our milestone this year. And you're right. Every individual person has a deeply unique and personal experience. And to give an example of what some of those experiences are,
please.
Earlier this year, we worked with a man who had the remains of his parents, the ashes of his parents. His father died, his mother had already passed, and he sent us the remains of both of them. We solidified them into the stones and returned them to him. And he then planned this memorial motorcycle road trip where he packed up his motorcycle, packed up his parents, and drove from Texas all the way up to Vancouver, Canada. And along the way, he would leave stones in places that were important to his parents in their life, and eventually ending up where he grew up, and posting these really touching videos along the way about why these places were important to him, why he was leaving his parents in these places for eternity. That's where they're going to live, because that's where they would have wanted to live.
Of all the business owners who get joy hearing customers' stories for using their product, this must take the cake. I mean, that must be a lovely thing to see as someone who's running this business.
I mean, it is, it's meaningful for me. And, we have a team of 24 people right now, and, it's meaningful for them too. Something really special that we have kind of nurtured over the last few years is people really loved sending us letters to tell us about these stories. And so we started telling people who worked on their loved one's order. And now we've received, I think, about 1,200 handwritten letters from the families we've worked with. And each one has this beautiful story of what they did with the remains. And those letters get delivered directly to the team members who worked on that order with that person. And that's been such a special thing for me, and special thing for the people receiving those letters addressed to them, reading those stories, and seeing the impact that they're having on people's grief journey.
Well, I'm here with Justin Crowe, the founder of Parting Stone. If you want to find out more information about this product and company, check them out at partingstone.com. Justin, this has been a great chat. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, David. I'm really appreciating being here.
Up next, a look at kids' online safety. Are parents relying too much on fear, myths, and parental controls in those apps that don't really work? Should we just try to be talking to kids more? And what simple steps can protect kids' safety online? We'll tell you after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 40% off site-wide, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
When the day is done, we're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
People worry about kids' safety online, but they often get it wrong. We'll explore what parents misunderstand, why fear that awful things will happen to your kid may backfire on you, and how simple habits and open dialogue can protect kids in the digital age. I'm here with digital safety advocate and author of the Mom Friend Guide to Everyday Safety and Security, available wherever books are sold, and TV host who recently wrote about this. Her name is Cathy Pedrayes. Cathy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I get it. My parents were worried that everything would happen to me always. They didn't always respond to it in the best way. And I grew up in the late 80s and 90s when there wasn't like really the internet out there for kids. When parents come to you scared about their kids, what are they often saying?
It's often exactly those kinds of things. First of all, it's generally always fear-based. The internet is taking their kids away from the real life because they're spending so much time on their phones. And then what are they doing? What kind of media are they consuming? Who are these, all these strangers they're interacting with, and all these strangers want to do harm to their kids. And it's very much coming from that space as opposed to viewing technology and social media as a tool.
So it's sort of fear-based, you would say.
1000%, which is absolutely not productive at all.
All right. Well, what are some of the myths or misunderstandings that parents get wrong about kids' online safety?
Well, I would say there's a lot here, actually.
Sure, yeah. It's just a quick question. You can answer it in 20 seconds.
One of the things is, we approach the internet as like, oh, you're talking to strangers. You can't be talking to strangers or whatever. And that works, of course, like if your 8-year-old is, playing a video game or something, sure, you only want them to be connected with, people that they know in real life. But in reality, when we're on the internet, like your teenagers on the internet or whatever, and we're liking posts and we're interacting with strangers every single day. So it's more about looking for red flags or, not being, I don't want to say an easy target maybe, but just being aware of what those signs are so that you know what not to fall for. And it's not just about strangers wanting to do harm per se. That's a big umbrella. It could also include scams. Kids on Roblox lose millions of dollars to scams every year because they fall for these little things. So it's looking for general red flags. It's not always like, oh, a stranger is going to take a child from your home kind of thing.
Okay. And so how do parents often act with this kind of worry of red flags and this fear-based approach?
Well, it becomes counterproductive because what ends up happening is a lot of times parents are coming from a place where they haven't been on these platforms themselves. They don't know how any of these things work. So then it kind of comes off as this like lecturing, like, you don't know, mom, like that whole vibe that I'm sure everybody has got. And it just doesn't really get anywhere. So my message for parents would be the instincts that you already have when it comes to parenting in terms of how to keep your kids safe, those instincts still apply. It's just now instead of it being crossing the street or riding the bike for the first time or learning how to drive a car for the first time, now it's learning how to drive your phone essentially and like manage that for the first time, because we have our physical life and we have our digital life, and both things need to be managed cohesively and responsibly. And so one of the first things that a parent can do is, number one, model the behavior that you want out of your kid, right? So if you don't want them on your phone 24/7, like they're going to pick that up from parents. And I know that's hard. Obviously, I'm online a lot, so I can be guilty of that, but it's just something to be conscious of. And then the other thing is to be on the same platforms that they're on. It'll help you understand the baseline. It'll help you get over that fear, because if you know how people interact on that platform, then okay, here's the baseline. Here's when something is weird or not weird.
But every parent can't understand like Roblox and some of these games. I mean, I don't even understand this stuff, and I have a computer science degree.
That is the challenge, actually, is there aren't enough hours in the day. Like, I'm a mom too. And yeah, it's hard. I would pick up on maybe the top types of things. So, maybe you're already on social media. Roblox, you might stink at it, but maybe it is like a fun opportunity to, just play for like 15 minutes or sit alongside them. You're scrolling, they're scrolling. There are a lot of, this is the other part that I guess could be overwhelming, is that there are a lot of like parental controls with these apps too. And it's really important that those get set up properly from the jump, ideally. So once you're getting a new platform or whatever, set those things up. And actually, I'll add, a lot of these apps have parental family resources. They even have contracts that you can sign with your kids. So it kind of gives you like a starting point. So you don't feel like you're starting from, scratch.
Parental controls. I want to zoom in there. They can give parents, people a peace of mind, but they might not be enough. And there's got to be a balance between like monitoring and controlling and talking to your kids and knowing what's going on, even though there may be some limits there that you can't place. Like, are parental controls enough? Is it set it and forget it, or is that just the beginning of your kids' use online?
It's definitely the beginning. It's definitely not a set it and forget it. It has to grow with them. So for example, I'm an Apple user. I have Apple devices. I also have, all the social media apps, like Instagram and all of that. All of them have their own different versions. If I was setting up a phone for the first time today, I would set up first the devices, family pairing tools, right? So like with iPhone, they have their own version of it, or Apple Watch, whatever those devices are. I would set up that first, and then I would work down through the apps, because that's like the overarching platform. But the way it works is it grows with them. And for example, because I have Apple, I'm using that example because I happen to use it more, but it'll actually make suggestions for the parents of like, hey, you may want to adjust this setting now because of the age that we think your child is based on the birthday that you put in. So a good example is, maybe when a child is 8, they don't need as much access to human body information about, whatever, private parts and things like that. But now when they're getting through the age of puberty and they might have questions about those things, then now maybe certain controls need to be loosened up, because that's a topic they might naturally be inclined to look up.
I think every parent is worried about kids making mistakes. If it's riding a bike, they're going to get a boo-boo on their shoulder. But kids can make mistakes online. Maybe they game with people who aren't age appropriate and there's profanity in the gaming chat or whatever. How do you deal with these kinds of mistakes without, being draconian and saying, oh, you can't ever play that game again, or you can't ever go on TikTok again? Like, is that something that you need to navigate with your kids?
I think the parents' reaction, and if you go to a lot of these parenting advice groups too, a lot of the responses will be take away the phone. It's a privilege. You can't handle the responsibility or whatever. And in some extreme cases, yes, that's probably a good thing to do. I work with, children in foster care where I'm exposed to some extreme cases. But generally speaking, the best response is a conversation. Like, we all make mistakes, right? And so it's not about demonizing the mistake. We make mistakes. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how to improve it. And like, maybe there are some consequences. Like, you know what? You lost an hour of playtime for this week or whatever after dinner or whatever. Or, you have like, there could be definitely some natural consequences, but it has to be a conversation with the child, and obviously an age appropriate conversation. A 5-year-old's going to be very different from a 15-year-old. Well, also there's ages, usually the minimum age is 13 to even be on these things, but it has to be a conversation like, hey, these are the expectations before we get on this, this device, this app, whatever it might be. These are going to be some of the consequences. If you can't handle this, then we're going to do this, and make it a conversation so they feel like they're really a part of it. I think a lot of times we there's a lot of independence. Teens have a lot of thoughts about this, particularly teens I'll focus on, like Gen Z, Gen Alpha. They have a lot of thoughts on these things, and they want to use it responsibly. They know that these technologies can be problematic on them, like in their lives. And in many ways, they're wiser than we are as like millennials or Gen Xers. And so I think we can turn to them for some of that information. Like, we can trust that they might have some good insight.
Well, check out Cathy's book, The Mom Friend Guide to Everyday Safety and Security. That's available wherever books are sold. Cathy's a digital safety advocate. Cathy Pedrayes, thanks for talking to me today. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Anytime. Thank you.
That is our Wednesday night show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do not forget, the last show is available as a podcast. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com, for more information. You can catch parts of this show you missed and even get some bonus podcast-only content. So subscribe to our podcast. I would personally appreciate it. I'm David Cooper, and this was The Last Show.
ABC Wednesday, Shifting Gears is back.
He has arisen.
Tim Allen and Kat Dennings return in television's #1 new comedy.
What?
With a star-studded premiere including Jenna Elfman, Nancy Travis, and... Hey, buddy! A big home improvement reunion.
Welcome.
Oh, boy.
That guy's a tool.
Shifting Gears, season premiere Wednesday, 8/7 Central on ABC, and stream on Hulu.